I never thought my love story would turn into a nightmare. If you had met me 2 years ago, you would have seen a wide-eyed girl who believed in romance, in happy endings, in the kind of love that could heal wounds instead of causing them. My name is Elena Hart. I'm 27, and this is the story of how I almost lost myself, body, soul, and sanity, to the man who claimed to love me. It all began in Ravenwood, a city that looked perfect on the outside but had shadows lurking in every corner. I had just moved there for a marketing job at a publishing firm. New place, new people, a fresh start. I thought my life was finally coming together. That's when I met Damien Cross. Damien was magnetic. He had that dangerous charm, the kind that makes every woman turn her head, but also makes you wonder why his eyes never quite smile. He worked as an ASL interpreter and part-time ABA therapist, and he told me he was passionate about helping people. I believed him. In the beginning, I wanted to believe everything about him. The first red flags were so small, I almost ignored them. Like the way he commented on my outfits. That dress is a little too tight for pictures, or why don't you wear something I picked out for you? He'd smile as he said it, so I told myself it was harmless. Then there was his jealousy, sharp, irrational jealousy toward my best friend Lucas, a man I'd known since college. Damien would scowl when I mentioned Lucas, insisting there must have been something between us, even though Lucas had been nothing more than a brother figure in my life. At first, I laughed it off, but soon Damien demanded to see my phone, scrolling through messages, emails, even my photo gallery. One night, after an argument, he snatched my laptop, locked himself in his study, and refused to give it back until I begged. That was the first time I felt the icy grip of fear in my chest. But fear is a strange thing. It whispers to you, leave. Yet another voice, the one shaped by hope, love, and denial, whispers louder, stay. He'll change. It happened on a rainy evening. We were arguing. I can't even remember what started it. Maybe it was my refusal to cancel dinner with a colleague. Maybe it was because I hadn't answered his call fast enough. All I remember is the rage in his eyes. He shoved me onto the couch. My body hit the cushions, but the shock felt like concrete. He ripped my phone from my hands, hurled my bags at the door, and growled, "Get the F out." Trembling, I stumbled outside and ordered an Uber. As the car pulled up, Damien stormed after me, a book in his hand, a men's Bible devotional, and flung it at my face. The sting of the impact was nothing compared to the sting of betrayal. I thought it was over, but within hours, my phone lit up with a barrage of calls, texts, social media messages, and emails. Damien's words blurred together. Apologies, promises, desperate pleas. I'll change. I'll be better. Please come back. And against every ounce of reason, I went back. That was the beginning of my descent into hell. The abuse didn't stop, it escalated. His moods were like storms, sudden, violent, impossible to predict. If I disagreed with him, if I looked at him the wrong way, if I so much as took a breath he didn't approve of, he exploded. One night, after another screaming match, he locked me in his bedroom. For hours he stood over me, yelling, pinning me down, and blocking the doorway whenever I tried to leave. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd faint. When I finally escaped, I rushed to the front door, only for him to block it with his body. I had no choice but to run to the basement and slip out through the garage. I sprinted 6 blocks in the dark, rain lashing against my face, until I collapsed into the back seat of another Uber. Damien chased me the entire way. This wasn't a one-time incident. It happened again and again. And every time, he found a way to make it my fault. You pushed me to this, Elena. You're the one who makes me lose control. You're nothing but a slut, a whore, worthless trash. The words cut deeper than the bruises. Soon, I began to wonder if he was right. There were nights when I sat on the bathroom floor with a bottle of pills, wondering if ending it all was the only way to escape. When I confessed these thoughts to Damien, hoping for comfort, he laughed in my face. "You're insane," he sneered. "Go ahead. I don't care if you do it." Every time I tried to reach for help, the police, a hotline, even friends, Damien twisted the knife. He'd remind me of his job, of how he helped people, and how I'd ruin his career if I exposed him. He'd paint himself as the victim and me as the villain. Still, I tried to survive. I walked on eggshells, keeping my voice soft, my movements careful, anything to avoid waking the monster. And then he proposed. When Damien got down on one knee, I should have felt joy, but all I felt was fear. We were in his apartment, candles lit, music playing softly in the background. He held out a velvet box with a diamond ring glinting inside. His eyes locked on mine, and the room suddenly felt suffocating. I knew, deep in my gut, that saying no was not an option.
So I said yes.
The moment the word left my mouth, his expression shifted from anticipation to triumph. It wasn't love that flickered in his eyes. It was victory, like he had finally secured ownership of me. I wore the ring like a shackle. Every time I looked at it, my stomach twisted. But to everyone else, coworkers, casual friends, even strangers, it was a symbol of happiness. People congratulated me, smiled, asked about wedding dates. I smiled back, lying through my teeth, while my inside screamed. With the engagement came new rules. Damien insisted on knowing where I was at all times. He demanded access to my phone and emails. If I didn't answer within minutes, he'd blow up my phone with dozens of missed calls. He started cutting me off from people. My best friend Lucas? He's jealous of us. You don't need him. My coworker Ava, who invited me out for coffee. She's a bad influence. Even my parents became targets. They don't respect me. Why bother visiting them? Soon, my world shrank to Damien and Damien alone. And that's exactly how he wanted it. Damien wasn't content with emotional control. He wanted financial control too. He persuaded me to merge some of my accounts with his, claiming it would make wedding planning easier. He monitored my spending, criticized every purchase, and demanded receipts. One afternoon, I bought a simple dress for work. When I came home, he held it up with disgust. "Who are you trying to impress in this?" he hissed. "You think I don't know what you're doing?" I tried to explain, but it didn't matter. He tore the dress into pieces right in front of me. I sat frozen, tears spilling down my cheeks as fabric shredded in his hands. That night, I realized something chilling. I was losing myself.
Piece by piece.
Our fights grew darker, more dangerous. One evening, after a heated argument about me wanting to see my mother, he snapped. He grabbed me, shoved me into his bedroom, and locked the door. "You're not leaving until you admit you're wrong," he spat. Hours passed. He screamed until his voice cracked, towering over me, blocking every attempt I made to escape. He pinned me down on the bed, his breath hot with rage, and I felt the weight of his body crushing me into the mattress. I begged him to stop.
He didn't.
When I finally broke free, I dashed to the front door, but he was faster. He stood in front of it, arms spread wide, daring me to try. I panicked, bolted to the basement, and slipped out the back door. The cold night air hit my face as I ran through the rain-soaked streets, my heart hammering so loud I thought it would burst. I sprinted 6 blocks, Damien's footsteps pounding behind me, before I managed to jump into an Uber and escape. But the terror followed me home. It happened again, and again, each time worse than the last. Each time leaving me more broken. The physical abuse was unbearable, but the words? Sometimes they cut deeper. "You're worthless. No man would ever want you. You're nothing without me." He called me every vile name you can imagine: slut, whore, trash. There were nights I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if ending my life was the only way to escape. I even told him once, through tears, that I wanted to die. His response? A cold laugh. "You're insane," he sneered. "Do it. I don't care." Those words branded themselves into my skin like fire. I tried calling the police once, but Damien caught me before I could finish the call. He grabbed the phone, slammed it against the wall, and snarled, "If I lose my job because of you, I swear it'll be your fault." And I believed him. He painted himself as the victim, a hardworking interpreter, a therapist, a man who loved too much. If I ruined him, he said, I'd be the monster. So I learned to walk on eggshells. I kept my voice soft, my steps light, my presence small. Anything to avoid another explosion. But inside me, something was shifting. A small spark, fragile but alive, whispering, "This can't be forever. You need to get out." The final straw came one night when Damien grabbed my engagement ring and shoved it against my fingers so hard it left a bruise. "You're mine," he growled. "Don't ever forget that." In that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't his. I would never be his. I refused to let him destroy me any further. That night, lying awake in the dark, I made a silent vow. I will get out, no matter what it takes. I didn't sleep the night. He crushed the ring into my finger and said, "You're mine." Something inside me finally stopped pleading and started planning. I began small, the way anyone does when they're afraid of being watched. I backed up my phone, then forwarded screenshots of his threats to a new email I created on a library computer. I printed a few of the worst messages at work and tucked them into a manila folder labeled quarterly invoices. I moved a change of clothes, a pair of sneakers, a spare phone charger, and a small envelope of cash into a tote I hid behind the cleaning supplies in my office. I told Lucas, careful, measured, need to know things only. If I texted Seaglass, he would call the police and meet me at Hope Street Diner, the place 2 blocks from the precinct with a flickering neon cup in the window. I adjusted my life like a chessboard, one quiet square at a time. Damien seemed calmer that week. That scared me more than his fury. With him, silence meant storm. He asked about venues and tasting menus, like we hadn't spent nights trapped in a loop of screaming and locked doors. When I said I needed more time, he tilted his head, smiling in that way that wasn't a smile. "Time is a luxury," he said softly. "I'm done waiting for you to catch up." I answered nothing. I learned the power of my silence. The plan was simple. End it in public. Return the ring in public. Leave in public. Then never be alone with him again. Saturday afternoon, I chose the diner. Busy enough to have witnesses, small enough that a manager would notice if a scene erupted. I walked there instead of taking a car, so he couldn't track my ride. I brought the manila folder, just in case, and left my work tote with the spare clothes at the office. My hands shook so hard I kept them around a mug of coffee even when it turned cold. Damien arrived 10 minutes late in a pressed shirt I'd never seen and a smile I didn't trust. He kissed my cheek like we were playing lovers on a stage, then slid into the booth across from me. "What's all this?" he asked, as if he couldn't see the ring in the velvet box between us. "It's over," I said. The words were plain, steady, shockingly gentle. "I'm calling off the engagement." He stared at the box, then at me. I held his gaze and tried not to blink. "Say that again," he said. "It's over." He chuckled, low and theatrical. "You always did love your little dramatics." "I'm not being dramatic." I slid the box toward him. "I'm being clear." The smile vanished. A thin, hard line took its place. He took the box. He didn't open it. He just rested his hand on top like a weight. "You're making a mistake," he murmured. "I'm making a choice." His eyes went dark. "You think you can discard me like a receipt?" His voice lowered further. "You belong to me." I didn't look away. I don't. I'd rehearsed that in the mirror. The exact cadence, the exact stillness. My heart was a drumlin behind my ribs, but my face, thank God, stayed calm. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Get up."
No.
"Get up, Elena." The way he said my name felt like a hand at my throat. "We're leaving." I shook my head. "I'm not going anywhere with you." He smiled again, that flat, terrifying smile. Then his hand shot out, fast as a trap, and wrapped around my wrist under the edge of the table. The squeeze stole my breath. I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes on him and lowered my voice to a whisper no one else could hear. "If you don't let go, I'll say one word," I said, loud enough for every person in this diner to hear.
A beat. 2.
"What word?" "Help." The grip loosened, just a fraction. I took my hand back and placed it carefully around the cold mug like nothing had happened. Behind the counter, the manager, middle-aged, watchful, was already watching. This is why I picked this place, I reminded myself.
Light.
Witnesses. Doors that open onto a busy street. 2 minutes from a police station. He glanced at the manager, then back at me. Quieter, venom stitched into silk. You don't want to do this here. This is the only place I will do this, I said. Public. Final. I stood. Goodbye, Damien. I didn't wait for an answer. I turned, walked out into the afternoon light, and kept walking, step after step. It felt like crossing a thrilling, terrible threshold, my body humming with adrenaline, my lungs finally tasting air. At the corner, I pulled out my phone and typed "sea glass." By the time I reached the second block, I could feel him behind me. "Don't you dare walk away from me," he hissed, so close his breath brushed my ear. His hand clamped down on my shoulder. "We're not done." I twisted free on instinct, that old survival dance my body had learned in spite of me. "We are." He reached for my phone. I clutched it to my chest. He grabbed for it again, and this time his fingers collided with my collarbone hard enough to send pain singing down my arm. I stumbled back into the brick of Fern and Finch books and felt the old fear descend, a shadow I knew too well. "This is where you run," my mind said. "This is where you fight," my heart answered. "This is where you choose." I made a sound I didn't know I could make, a sharp, fierce word that cracked the air. "Help." 2 heads turned. A couple at the corner froze. A woman with a stroller looked up, alarm heavy in her expression. The bookstore door swung open, and a young clerk leaned out, eyes wide. "Are you okay?" Damien's hand dropped. "She's fine," he said smoothly. "We're engaged. Having a lover's quarrel." The clerk's gaze flicked to my face. The bruise purpled at the base of my finger where the ring used to sit, the way my shoulders were curved protectively. "You don't look fine," he said to me, not to Damien. "I'm not," I said, my voice steadying. "Please call the police." Damien took a step toward me, then stopped, calculating, the crowd's eyes pricking his skin. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said through his teeth. I took another step backward, my spine pressed to the cool glass of the shopfront. I kept my eyes on the clerk. "Please." He nodded and vanished back inside. Damien's jaw flexed. "You think anyone will believe you?" he said, voice low. "You think you can ruin me and walk away?" "I don't want to ruin you," I said. "I just want to leave." The sirens were faint at first, a far-off thread winding through the city noise. My phone buzzed in my palm. "Lucas, I'm here. I see you." 2 minutes. Relief and terror crashed together so hard I almost swayed. Damien heard the siren too. His eyes flashed. He lunged. It happened fast. His hand hooked my elbow. My shoulder buckled. The phone skittered across the pavement with a brittle clatter. He tried to steer me toward the alley that sliced between the bookstore and the florist. I dug in my heels and caught the edge of the window with both palms, fingers burning on the metal.
He yanked.
The crowd gasped as one body. "Let go of me," I yelled. "Stop it," he snarled. "You're coming with me." I remembered all the times I'd gone quiet to survive, all the ways I'd made myself small. I remembered the bathroom floor and the empty nights, and the ring bruised into my flesh. And then I remembered the woman I used to be, the one who laughed loudly, wore red lipstick to the office on Mondays, and ran along the river at dusk because she liked the way the sky turned to molten glass. She charged back. My knee came up, not a strike. My self-defense classes were still in the future, but enough to jolt him, enough to make his grip falter. I twisted and scraped my arm free, skin tearing on the brick. He grabbed for me again, but the bookstore clerk was there now, and the manager from the diner, too, and the woman with the stroller, and an older man in a wool cap, and suddenly there were hands and witnesses and eyes. "Back off," the manager snapped. "Sir." "The police are on their way," the clerk said, voice trembling but strong. Damien's gaze darted, calculating exits and consequences. I knew that look, the animal in a trap, the moment before the teeth. He took one step toward me anyway, reckless with a familiarity of getting his way. Then a car door slammed. Lucas's voice cut across the sidewalk. "Elena!" I saw his face, wide with worry, jaw tight, eyes locked on me. He didn't rush in swinging. He put himself between us, palms out, voice steady. You need to step away from her. For a second, I thought Damien might do something catastrophic. But the sirens were loud now, swelling, and 2 squad cars turned onto the block, lights painting the glass. And there it was at last. A boundary even Damien couldn't charm his way through. He lifted his hands. A performance. This is a misunderstanding, he announced to the assembled crowd and the approaching officers. My fiancé is upset. She's overreacting. I'm not your fiancé, I said. I called off the engagement. The officers separated us, one of them guiding me to the curb, the other asking Damien to step back. My hands shook so hard I had to press them into my thighs to stop the trembling. Are you injured? The officer asked. She was calm, practiced, kind without being pitying. My arm, I said, and my shoulder. He grabbed me. He's locked me in rooms before. He's blocked doors. My voice faltered. I swallowed and tried again. I have screenshots of messages. I have witnesses today. The officer nodded. We'll document everything. We'll get your statement. Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight? Yes, Lucas said from behind me, voice sure. She's with me. I didn't look at Damien while they asked him questions. I didn't need to. I knew the script he'd choose.
He'd be smooth.
He'd be indignant. He'd be hurt. He'd be believable to anyone who hadn't seen behind the door. But here, on this sidewalk, under the unblinking eye of afternoon, he wasn't the only one with a story. When the officer asked if I wanted to request an emergency protective order, I said yes. I gave my statement at the precinct. I watched the officer photograph the bruises blooming like violets along my arm and the faint yellowed crescent near my finger, where a ring used to sit. I signed the paper. They gave me a copy. Lucas waited outside the room, not hovering, just there. Afterward, I stood in the station bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was a mess. My mascara had smudged into bruised shadows beneath my eyes. A thin slice of skin was missing from my forearm, where the brick had kissed it hard. I pressed a damp paper towel to it and felt the blessed, bewildering quiet inside my head. I was out. It didn't end everything. It never does. The next weeks were a collage of practicalities. Changing locks, forwarding mail, blocking numbers, opening a new bank account, packing boxes for my apartment while friends stood guard, switching my route to work, telling HR what I was comfortable telling them. The protective order arrived. It wasn't a magic shield, but it was a line drawn in ink, and sometimes that's what a person needs, the tangible shape of no. He tried to contact me anyway, unknown numbers, fake accounts, long emails that swung from apology to accusation and back again. I saved them all. I didn't reply. I learned the art of not feeding the fire. Eventually, the messages thinned. Silence grew. A month later, he posted pictures with a new woman. I saw them only because a friend warned me. Otherwise, I had stopped looking. Her smile was tentative like mine had been. My stomach turned. I whispered a prayer for her, the same one I once whispered for myself. Please see the truth while you still can. Please find the door. I wish I could tell you the rest was easy. It wasn't. Healing felt like learning to walk again after forgetting how feet work. I cried in the grocery store once because a song from the diner came over the speakers. I had to leave my cart half full and sit in my car with the air conditioning blasting, palms pressed to the wheel, breathing like the therapist taught me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. I woke from dreams with my heart galloping, the ghost of a hand at my throat. So, I did the work. 25 sessions of counseling and counting. Not all at once, but steadily, stubbornly. I learned my nervous system wasn't betraying me. It was trying to keep me alive. I learned that boundaries aren't punishments. They're doors with locks that keep the wind out. I took self-defense classes, not to become a fighter, but to reclaim the way my body moved through space. I stopped drinking. At first it was practical. Sobriety made vigilance sharper. Then it became a celebration. 1 full year of clarity. I chose celibacy, too, not as a penance but as a gift. I wanted to learn what my own company felt like without fear in the room. And slowly, the city that held so many bad nights began to give me back the good ones. The river path at dusk. The way the barista at the corner cafe learned my name. The bookshelf I built with my own hands. The first laugh that surprised me, bright and full and unafraid. I wrote, at first just to sort the noise in my head into sentences. Then pages became chapters. I called the book Calling Forth the Waves because that's what it felt like. Standing in the surf and summoning courage, letting the water crash and crash until the fear was sand at my ankles instead of an ocean over my head. How do I get rid of a cruel fiancé? I ask in the first line. And then I answer. You don't get rid of him. You get yourself back. You choose daylight, witnesses, doors that open onto crowded streets. You find one safe person and tell one true thing. You make a plan in quiet squares. You draw a line in ink and in your bones. You leave, and if you can't leave yet, you keep breathing until you can. You build a life so wide his shadow can't reach across it. On the anniversary of the day I left, I walked past the diner with a flickering neon cup. The manager was inside, polishing the counter. I stepped in and ordered coffee. When he looked up and recognized me, his smile was small and real. You okay? He asked. I am, I said. Outside, the sky over Ravenwood was a clear, improbable blue. I took my coffee to the river and sat on a bench where joggers passed and dogs tugged their leashes and teenagers laughed too loudly. I turned my face to the sun and closed my eyes. I am not what he called me. I am not what he tried to make me. I am a woman who chose her life. And that's how I got rid of a cruel fiancé. I stopped asking how to fix him. I learned how to keep myself. I walked toward the door, opened it wide, and didn't look back.